There's the go live button. Got it.
All right.
And here we go. You're live. Hello and welcome to another day in the Milky Way, everyone. Thank you all for coming. And tonight I got a great guest for you. And I know y'all enjoy him. Ryan Serio, thank you for coming.
Yep, we're going to have a lot of fun tonight. Going to talk about early Christian Jesus and Gnosticism in particular. So really good topic. So I've never talked about this before, and there's plenty to talk about.
Oh, and that's great, because if you haven't noticed, for the last week or two, it's all been about, all the show's been about religion and about the Nag Hammadi and Enoch. And I got the Nag Hammadi book right here, and we've been reading out of that. And I don't know how you always end up doing it, but every time we do something, I kind of seem to do some shows just before you come on that kind of pertain to it. It's like we're psychically connected some way there, but I mean, even without you telling me that you were going to do that, I was like, I had this all planned out. Well, I've been reading from the book of Enoch. I've been reading, we had that religious roundtable the last weekend, and now we got you here to tell us more stuff, which I think is great. So have at her. What don't I know? And that you can fill me and everybody else here in that's in the chat. We got a bunch of people come in. We got Steve who joined us. He come out of the woodwork. Mary Wins, Grandpa Brian, Lucky Stone, and Allie Berry have joined us tonight. All waiting for you.
All right, so let's begin. So lately when I've come on, I've talked about Kabbalah and Jewish mysticism, but there's a lot of really good Christian mysticism as well, and what we call Gnostic Christians. So this is a time after Jesus, around this. So Gnosticism happened about the same time, parallel to Orthodox Christianity, and back then it wasn't really separated. There was just Christianity. There were people who followed Jesus, but there were two different schools of thought. So there was one that was more faith-driven, more faith-based, and that was what turned out to be the Orthodox Christianity that won. So that was the Christianity that basically the state of Rome could say, here is our new state religion. And so this was just based on faith, just believe in Jesus and you will be saved. They wanted something that would be Catholic or universal. So this was the Orthodox religion, very universal, and that's why that was chosen. But at the same time, there was other branches of Christianity that were more cerebral, more intellectual, and that had a lot of convoluted thoughts and ideas about the cosmos, and dealt with a lot more things than what we see in the Bible, which were just books that were cherry picked. So there were lots of different books written about Jesus all at the same time, from the 1st century through the 4th century. And so eventually during the Council of Nicaea, Rome decided to pick a few. They picked 4 Gospels, and they picked a few other books for the New Testament, and this was what became Christianity as we know it. But there was a lot of stuff that was left out, and we didn't really know about this until very recently with the uncovering of the Nag Hammadi and also the Dead Sea Scrolls. We knew about some of the stuff based on the writings of early Christians that were like, these other people, they're heretical, don't listen to them. They have like this other idea of what Jesus was like, but just listen to us. And so then when the Nag Hammadi came out, especially in the Dead Sea Scrolls, then people were able to see for themselves what this other Christianity really was and what it entailed. And it was really, so what the early Christians said that criticized them, that was basically just kind of a caricature of what was found in these other books. So there was like it was very rich what they found, very diverse, and they found like all new ideas that Jesus said. Like in the Bible, it does say that Jesus spoke to his disciples in one way. He had one set of teachings that were more esoteric just for his own group of people, his own disciples. And he had other teachings that were parables that were more for the masses. So of course, the state religion decided to cherry pick just the ones that were about the readings for the masses and not the ones for the disciples themselves, which are the what a lot of people I know are interested in. They want the meat of the matter. They want to know Jesus's secret teachings. And that's basically what turned into Gnostic Christianity. And Gnostic as a name just means knowing. There's Gnostic Christianity, to a lesser extent, Gnostic Judaism, which eventually turned into some forms of Kabbalah. And there's even Gnostic Islamism, which turned into Sufism. So Gnostic isn't solely limited to Christianity, but a lot of the early Gnostics were Christians, and they had their own set of beliefs that we will be getting into, and their own cosmology as well, their own forms of magic, and it really goes deep. It's a lot deeper than what we're taught in Sunday school about Jesus and Christianity. There's a lot more to it. So I'll let you catch up. And
weren't I know, like, they were as far as what I know, and is the Gnostics, the original ones, were just a small select group, and they kind of stuck to themselves.
yes.
I read, and then they had like secret teachings. They did certain things and nobody really knew, and then eventually they got wiped out, the original ones, and
There
then
were so
others.
many different orders.
Yes.
So even among the Gnostic Christians, there were a lot of different groups that kind of like agreed with some aspects and then disagreed with others. Like, for example, so when we think of Gnosticism today, people normally think of the Sethian Gnostics, because the Sethian Gnostics were the ones that were really hardcore with like matter spirit dualism and the Archons, the hypostasis of the Archons, and how they control the world. So these were the Sethian Gnostics, and they were called Sethian because they were based on so Adam and Eve had a son named Seth, and then Seth was the inheritor of all of this knowledge. And then everybody that came after that were the recipients of this Gnostic religion. And so that was the Sethian Gnostics. And there were also other branches, like the more popular one that tried to win favor in Rome was the Valentinian sect. And Valentinus was almost elected as Bishop of Rome. And so he was the last one that was passed over, and then they ended up getting an Orthodox one. This was very early, maybe about like 150, around that time. But then after Valentinus was not elected as the Bishop of Rome, then he kind of went to himself and like said, kind of went underground, and then was like, screw you guys, I'm going to do what I do. And then a lot of the Orthodox Christians went after him after this, like saying his religion was too materialistic and too intellectual, too convoluted for the masses. And so that was another sect of Gnosticism, and that was based on a lot of correspondences like alchemy, biochemistry, talking about like regions in the brain and the spinal cord. A lot of what you hear now about like the alchemy and biochemistry in spiritual practice, that came from the Valentinian Gnostics. And and then the next one after him that he taught, Marcus, the Marcosians were kind of like more of a magical group. So they were based on Valentinian Gnosticism, but he was a magician himself, and he taught a lot of gematria. He taught about the power of letters and vibrations and numbers, very similar to a lot of the esoteric Jews that we've talked about in previous episodes that ended up being the Kabbalists. So Marcus was almost like a Kabbalist himself, even though he was a Christian. So you have that sect, and then you have other sects too. So for example, the Pistis Sophia was a slightly different branch of Gnostics that were kind of in the middle. So they believed in the Archons as well, and they also believed that there was another god above Yaldabaoth that was the creator. So they're saying, forget about the God of the Old Testament, forget about Yahweh. Yaldabaoth, which is the head Archon. We could talk more about him and like his mythology. But their god was separate. Their god was all Greek vowels, I-E-O-U, you. So they called their books the books of you, and they were a very magical and esoteric group of Christians. And of course, you have Jesus himself, which they say was an Essene, which was a type of Judaism that was also very esoteric and based on some magical practices. So there's a lot going on in very early Greek and Roman Empire, where all of these different sects were competing for just basically what's the truth. And the Gnostics were interested mainly in what is the truth, and they didn't care if it was convoluted or not, if it was deep. That actually worked in their favor because they wanted to have like a small esoteric order. But on the other hand, you had the Orthodox Christians that wanted to basically take over the world, which is what they did. And they wanted things to be as simple as possible. They wanted to basically have just a universal system that any person could believe in, just have faith and you will be saved. So that is what ended up winning, and that is what most people see as Christianity in today's world. So most people don't even know about the Gnostics, but that is also a type of Christianity, and it is much deeper than what we originally saw with the Roman Christian belief system, which is all faith-based and pretty much anti-intellectual in many ways.
Wow. Yeah, and see, I think you're right, because the Catholic Church took that, and they had the Bible. They didn't let people read it. They had only the priests that could read it, and then they had it in Latin. So even if you could read, you couldn't read Latin.
Yeah.
And so it was like they were trying to hide things the whole entire time, even though they made it simple. And I guess that's an easy way to look at it, because if something's simplified, people will follow it. I'm all about simplification, and if you make something too difficult, human nature says that you will either avoid it or you will find an easier way around doing it. But like the
you don't want to whitewash it.
Yeah, exactly. But the Gnostics there, and these other groups that were doing the higher levels, people have to work at it. Just like most people will go to church, they will sit there, they will listen to the sermon, whatever the preacher tells them. They don't care, if he read it out of the Bible or the Satan Bible. To them, he's given the sermon. I'm sitting here. I believe in God. I'm good. And they walk out of there and they do whatever they want the rest of the week, because they think, like, I'm okay because I went to church on Sunday and I listened to the guy speak. But did you ever read the Bible? Nope. Did you ever check anything out? Nope. Why do you believe what you believe?
And again, it comes down to faith, which by itself, faith is a good thing, but at the same time, you don't want blind faith.
Yes.
So you want to have faith, but at the same time, you don't want faith to cloud your judgment, faith to cloud your reason. You don't want to just do something. So I understand the mindset of a lot of Christians, how they want to go to church just to be in good standing. Like, okay, this is my weekly hour of honoring God. Okay. So I can understand that mindset. But at the same time, like, there's a lot that the church hides. The upper levels, I think they know what they're doing, but for the most part, like, most priests don't really understand it. Like, they just do what they're taught in, like, when they're training to become priests. They're like, okay, like, just take care of your flock and just make sure they do good and stuff like that, which is okay. But people just miss a lot doing that. Like, I feel like there's a lot more to it that's misunderstood, and that's one of the reasons that religion in the West, especially Christianity, gets a bad name, and why so many people have abandoned it, turned to like other things like atheism and polytheism. And I think a lot of that is because they're not allowed to question anything, and when they do, then then they can get in trouble for it. And like a lot of the church could be stubborn about certain things and not willing to take other people's viewpoints into consideration, which all should be done like in a living religion like that. You don't want to be too rigid, too stubborn, and kind of like move your own people away so that they turn somewhere else. And I think that's a big fault of modern religion, that they do things like that rather than help people grow and use spiritual knowledge to like make people better themselves in a holistic way.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so many people that are turning away from, I mean, I just seen it on the news the other day that the Catholic Church was losing so many people. And I think that's churches in general are losing people because of the things. If you notice, a lot of them are turning to things to draw people in. They got like a coffee shop in the church to bring them in. You know, hey, you can have a coffee and a donut and go see the preacher speak. And you know, they have baseball games and they have get-togethers and you know, activities. And that's fine. I'm saying, but they're doing these things to like an amusement thing. I went to a church many years ago, and they had this band playing there, you know, like musical stuff, you know, and I thought, oh my gosh, you know, and they had a big video screen up there to watch everybody with, and I was like, oh man, this is crazy. But you know, it was entertaining. It was entertaining. And that way I could see, you know, they're trying, because we have such a short attention span. I mean, look at, you know, YouTube videos, they're shorts, you know, we were just talking about that before the show. People's attention span don't last long. If I go more than an hour, I usually drop off half the people, and then a whole new group comes in, you know, East and West Coast people, you know, versus, but that's the thing. They just lose their attention. They get tired of watching. It's too much. You know, 100 years ago, people had a long attention span. You know, they could sit and read a whole book in a day, kind of thing. Nobody does that now, or at least not many. I think you know, what was it recently? Didn't the Pope come out and say something about what did he say? I just remember he came out and changed his viewpoint on something and said, "Oh, it's okay now," you know. And I'm thinking, well, yeah, they're just changing the rules so that people don't leave. And like you said, they're making it simpler and simpler and simpler. And these Gnostics, they were hardcore, believing in whatever that was, but they, you know, they had something going on there. I think like a lot of those things, like we talked about the Druids. Why did the Catholic Church want to wipe these people out? Why did they wipe the Druids out? Why did they wipe the Gnostics out? Why did these people all have to go underground? Because they must know the secrets, you know, or the real true meanings of things versus this whitewashed hoopla that they repeat over and over. It's like a 5-year. Did you ever see? It's like a 5-year cycle. And you go to church and they just do the things, and then 5 years later they start doing them all over again. You never graduate. How come you never graduate? It's always the same thing. You know, you never go any farther.
Yeah. And that's the total opposite of Christianity in the beginning, when Gnosticism was prevalent. So you had all of these different grades. So early Gnosticism was a lot like the magical orders that we've had for the past few hundred years, where, for example, you had different grades. And according to the very first books, Jesus was one of the teachers that had his own disciples, and he was very ahead of the curve in that he had disciples that were both men and women, and he had different ways to teach both men and women. Like they each had to undergo different types of trials based on their gender, but he included everyone. Like Mary Magdalene was very high up in Gnosticism, like basically the high priestess, but there were other women below her. Like she's the only one that really is talked about at length in Orthodox Christianity, but there were other disciples as well that were both men and women, not just the 12 apostles and Mary Magdalene on the side. And then the Orthodox religion turned Mary Magdalene into a whore. So that's not very nice either. When in Gnosticism, she was one of the highest disciples.
Yeah.
She isn't even has her own book, the book of like the Gospel of Mary Magdalene as well. And she shows up in pretty much all of the Gnostic orders as one of the highest priestesses of Jesus, and one of the closest students of her that was privy to all of his most pure esoteric knowledge. Now, these Gnostics, especially in the beginning, so they say in a couple of these books, they talk about how Jesus had his own order and taught both men and women. And what he taught was really interesting because, like I said, it was kind of like the magical orders of today, where he had different grades. So he started off the lowest grades, the lowest grade, which was on Earth here. And then you had 5 sublunar realms. So sublunar under the moon. So these were all the earthly realms. And then this is where you're going to find the Archons. So those were the bad guys of the Gnostics, and a lot is written about them in Gnostic literature, and a lot of people talk about the Archons now. So they were the first 5 eons were all about the Archons and facing different Archons, including Yaldabaoth, who was the lower creator, the demiurge, as well as Samael, which was in a sphere above him. And then in the 5th sphere, there's more Archons. So they were the first one. So basically in Gnostic initiation, they had to deal with the Archons right away. And they had different baptisms. So in Orthodox Christianity, you have the one baptism, which is the baptism by water. Everybody that's Catholic has to get baptized when they're infants. They don't know what's going on, but they get dunked in the water, and then that's basically it. They're baptized. But even in the Bible, it says in the Gospel, John the Baptist said, I'll baptize you with water, but eventually somebody's going to come after me, Jesus, that's going to baptize you with fire. So that's the second baptism. And the Gnostics had not only water and fire, they also had baptism by Holy Spirit. And then after that, then they had a 4th type of mystery, which was the mystery of the removal of the evil of the Archons. So they went through their 3 baptisms: water, which is all that's left now; fire, in which they had like their own special rituals. They had like crowns of vervain, the plant vervain, and myrtle in their hands. So it was like a whole thing. They had that, like they were carrying stones with specific numbers. I think it was 9879, because that was gematria. Then they had the Holy Spirit, the baptism of the Holy Spirit, which sounded to me like it was kind of like an astral projection type thing, because they had to hold mugwort, which everybody knows now that knows mugwort is what people take to have lucid dreams. So they took that, and then they so that was the 3rd baptism, and then the 4th one was to remove all evil from the influence of the Archons. And then that was also the first 5 levels. And then when you got past those 5 levels, then you go into the neutral Archons, which were the planetary Archons, which were the 7 spheres of the planets. And then you go beyond there into a liminal realm, and then you meet the higher gods in the lower realms, like through the lunar gates. So you meet the 3-faced god. You meet like the gods of the pleroma, just in the lower aspect, which is the god You, which they say, well, they said they don't want anything to do with the God of the Old Testament. So they call this different God You, because they said the God of the Old Testament was a jealous God. That was Yaldabaoth. He's an Archon. Don't pay attention to him. So they had the father god You, then the mother god Barbelo, and then the son, which was Christ. So they were the highest gods. And then below them was the daughter of God, which was Sophia. And then she's the one that Christ had to save from the Archons, because she tried to ascend, and she ended up descending instead, because she was tricked by the Archons that she ended up producing by going out of alignment with the natural order. And I actually have this book that I wanted to read some passages from. So it's called The Divine Spark Within. It's all about the It's all about Christianity in Gnostic times, early times with Gnosticism.
So before you get started, and I got a couple of small
Oh
questions.
yeah, go ahead, because I just spoke.
Well,
I just mentioned a lot there.
yeah, you just got a lot there. Yeah. With the women now in other religions or things, they all had women as like the intermediaries. The women were the seers. Wasn't it the thing in the Greek pantheon or something that they had the women there that
Oracle.
sat over the oracles were all
Yes.
women, the witches were women, the seers were women. It was always women, women, women.
Right.
And I got this new book here the other day, and it's called The Great Mother. The original creator was the Great Mother, not the the Great Father. It's a Great Mother. Well, which makes sense because a mother creates, which is true. But somehow, like you said, they took that Mary Magdalene lady and turned her in from the highest order to a whore on the street.
Yeah.
And why? Is there something going on that we're not privy to know? I mean, and that was the whole thing. And then the Sophia thing. And I've tried to look a lot of this stuff up. And you know what kept popping up is that Sophia, the robot lady. And like you were saying here just a minute ago, how Sophia went up and then she screwed things up kind of, and then she had to come back and she's trying to straighten things out. And now we have Sophia, the robot. Do you think there's any tie, everything, there's no coincidences.
Yeah.
Do you think there's something to all of this?
Oh yeah, because I mean, I remember when that came out a few years ago, and it was so I think they named it Sophia for that reason, because Sophia is synonymous with wisdom. Sophia means wisdom. So these people are very hardcore atheists, so they don't believe in anything above man. So to them, AI is like a god. So that is their wisdom. Like, this is wisdom. We made a robot that is almost sentient to them. I mean, obviously it's not sentient. I don't believe that we're close to that, even though some people do, but to them, that is their mission, to create a god, because they don't believe that a god exists. So they still have that hope for something better, and then they feel like they can create it. So of course they go with the archetype of Sophia or wisdom. So I think that's what that is all about. And it's definitely related. And I'm sure that they knew what they were doing when they named her Sophia. Because that is basically like their wisdom, their highest wisdom. Like, we created this AI and it's the most perfect thing. Like, we substituted a god that doesn't exist, basically, because that is their god.
Yeah. Okay. That makes a lot of sense, because I just couldn't figure that one out. I was stumped there. But yeah, now let's hear from that book that you got. That's
Okay.
That would be great.
Yeah, so this talks a lot about Jesus, Sophia, and Yaldabaoth and the Archons, and connects them all. So I'll read like a couple of pages here that sheds a lot of light. So I'll start with Jesus is saying himself. Now remember, so we have the words of Jesus. They were all secondhand in the Gospels, and then this is basically the same thing. They have words of Jesus based on who wrote the Pistis Sophia and the Gnostic treatise. So he says, I, Jesus, will tell you the mystery, how this befell her. And then this is in the Pistis Sophia. It came to pass when Pistis Sophia was in the 13th eon. So remember, I just said first 5 are sublunar, and then the next 7 are planetary. So once you get past the planetary, then you get into the stars. So the 13th eon was where Sophia fell. This was her domain, and she fell. So this is what he's talking about with the 13th eon. That Pistis Sophia gazed into the height. She saw the light of the ineffable, and she longed to reach to that region. And she could not reach to that region, but she ceased to perform the mystery of the 13th eon. So she left her post. Here, Sophia, the daughter of the Holy Spirit, sees this first mystery of the emanation and becomes overwhelmed with the desire to join with it. Sophia, being young, doesn't like to play by the rules and instead follows her passion. She becomes ecstatic when she catches a most incredible glint of light at the center of the heavenly realm. Without thinking, without planning, without making arrangements, she leaves her post and flies toward the light like a moth to the flame. As she is ascending the Aconic realms, the other divine pairs, though they are below her outside the pleroma, are dismayed at how she abandoned her position in the great architecture of this original divine universe. All the rulers in the 12 eons who are below hated her because she had ceased from her mysteries and because she had desired to go into the height and be above them all. For this cause, they were enraged against her and hated her. Sailing upward, however, Sophia was stopped from reaching that inner sanctum of source creation, prevented by some unseen limit or boundary. And then this is spoken about in Kabbalah, where the daughter reaches the height of the lower 7 spheres, but cannot go above into the highest Trinity. The first one above the 7 is Binah, which is the sphere of the mother, and the light does not descend from there because it gets stuck. And it's the same story here in Gnostic Christianity, where Sophia goes through the heights, through the lower eons, the planetary eons, and then gets stuck, cannot go beyond the planetary eons. So having been prevented from reaching her ultimate glory, the great palace of the first mystery, she turned her sights to see another light. What she did not know was that there is this false light of the demiurge. So she saw the false light. The demiurge is a Platonic word used in the Gnostic tradition to refer to the king of the Archons. Thinking that was light of the central source, she was drawn to it, thereby tumbling down out of the pleroma into the realm of chaos. Sophia recalls, in quotes, I gazed into the lower parts and saw there a light, thinking, I will go to that region in order that I may take the light. And I went and found myself in the darkness, which is in chaos below. So after this, they talk about how she was captured and tortured by the lower archons who raped her and they beat her and they took her light. And it was basically up to Jesus to descend from his heights as the son. So the pleroma was father, mother, son. So he was the son. So he descended to protect her, save her from the archons, and raise her back into the light. And that's basically the whole of the Gnostic creation story and the redemption by Christ, how he descended to bring her up. Hey, Trina.
And there's Trina. Thank you for coming.
I got stuck. I was at the Renaissance Fair and I just got in the doors.
Oh, you lucky girl, Renaissance Fair.
It was so much fun. It's so much fun.
Oh, I love that kind of stuff.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me
I
too.
went to a Renaissance Fair once. I'd love to go again.
It was super fun. Arizona's got a really big one and they've got lots of like castles and all kinds of fun stuff. So it was great.
Yeah, I love that. I think they have one in Minnesota, and I went to the one in Milwaukee. They had one in Milwaukee many years ago, and I went to that. And there's a big one in Minnesota. I would have liked to have gone to that one too, but oh well. But they must have them all over the country in different spots. But it is quite the thing to go to. And it's great to dress up. Did you dress up?
I did.
Yes.
I have a little outfit on.
Oh, awesome. That's the best, when you go and you dress. I didn't know that when I went. And then I get there and I felt out of place. I'm like, oh my.
Yeah, there's so many costumes. It's like Disneyland for adults. It's super fun. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Good for
awesome.
you. Well, we're in the talking about Sophia right now, but I don't know if you caught any of it, or
I heard Ryan just a little bit. I love this
catch up on this, but he was reading out of this cool book he's got, talking about the different levels and Sophia getting dropped down and the whole 9 yards. So anyway,
right on.
Go ahead, Ryan.
Okay.
You're on stage here.
All right. So Jesus continues. She went forth from her own region, the 13th eon, and went down to the 12 eons outside the pleroma. The rulers of the eons pursued her and were enraged against her because she was drawn toward grandeur. And she went forth also from the 12 eons and came into the region of the chaos and drew nigh to that lion-faced light power to devour it. All the material emanations of self-willed Yaldabaoth surrounded her, and the great lion faced light power devoured all the light powers in Sophia and cleaned out her light and devoured it. And her matter was thrust into the chaos. It became a lion-faced ruler in the chaos, of which one half is fire and the other is darkness. That is Yaldabaoth, of whom I have spoken unto you many times. So Jesus is saying there that he spoke to the disciples very frequently about Yaldabaoth, the false god. So we don't hear anything about this in any of the Gospels or any of the New Testaments. So we could see that Jesus had these teachings that were very, that they corresponded with the Gnostic teachings. He taught about the Archons and how there is this lion-faced god that is the false god, that is Yaldabaoth, who is the ruler of the Archons and basically ego and pride personified.
Is Yaldabaoth, he is not mentioned in the Bible, is he?
No.
No.
Depends who you ask, because according to the Gnostics, especially the Sethian Gnostics, and also other groups too, they say that the God of the Old Testament is Yaldabaoth, because they said he is the jealous God who says, there shall be no other God above me. So
Before
we
me, yeah.
heard that in the Bible, there should be no other God above me. So they're saying that the God that said that is Yaldabaoth and not the real God.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that was one of the things that made the Gnostics so controversial in early Christianity, to the point where the first major attack on the Gnostics that came from the Orthodox Christianity was from Irenaeus, and he basically said, well, let's not throw out all of this stuff from Judaism. This is, so he had like a more conservative take where we should accept their God as like the true God. And that is one of the major arguing points that he had against the Gnostics, that they just wanted to create this new religion that went totally against the Jewish faith, and they wanted to basically get something that would be for everyone, including Jews that would come into this new Christian faith in the Roman state. So that was one selling point. And then they had like other things too, like he would say, well, if Sophia is so wise, then why did she create like the most horrible god there is? So like they would use like some logic against her, not really understanding that it's all metaphor, and like this could be taken in a lot of different ways to explain like the origins of darkness and the fall of the divine feminine in nature, and in like through the whole archonic system for the fall from grace. And a lot of this, like I said, is also recapitulated in Kabbalah as well, in that the light could not penetrate when the daughter rises up to the level of the mother in the third sphere. So in Gnosticism, there's just a lot more spheres. So she's in the 13th eon out of about 40, and then beyond the eons, there's 60 treasuries of light, and Jesus talked about that in the Gnostic books as well. Like he gave code names, codes, stones with gematria to get past every single one of these 60 treasuries of light. And these were the realms of the stars, like the mansion of heaven. So beyond even like, so first you had the first levels of the archons, the worst archons, the first 5 levels, and then you have the neutral archons, which are the planet, and then you have eons above that, and then beyond that, then you have the 60 treasuries of light, which were cosmic. That was like a star religion. And so Jesus had all of the seals, the sigils, stones for that, numbers for that, names for that, to chant vibrations, so that his disciples could initiate to the highest levels above the stars themselves.
Yeah, that makes sense, because I know, I mean, we even talked about it here a little bit, that he was teaching them things that he wasn't really telling the general public, at least in the books and stuff, at least according to the Nag Hammadi books and stuff.
Right.
So, you know.
Yeah, so all of this was in like some of the very first Gnostic writings, and it's a shame that it's not disseminated too much. You have to really like look into it to find some of these sources that go deep into Jesus's teachings to the own disciples, and how magical it is, and how different it is from like the Christianity that you're taught, which is basically just like very whitewashed and very basic compared to his actual very intricate teachings. And like in Orthodox Christianity, they condemn magic and witchcraft, but meanwhile in this original Christianity, Jesus was the head of an order, and he did all of this ceremonial magic and had all of these seals, sigils, and stones, plants, like they use plants for their rituals, and pretty much everything that ceremonial magicians have done for hundreds and thousands of years.
Yeah, I agree on that. Trina, what do you got there? You got a nice book?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's the same thing. It's the Gnostic Gospels of Jesus, and there's just so much information in this book about what Ryan's speaking of. It's amazing when you look at the fall of Sophia and the creation from these texts. It's just so much bigger than what we've ever been taught. It's got a lot of potential, and I love this. Because of you, everything has come into being, and to you, everything will return. I shall praise and glorify you, the self-conceived, the eternal realms, the three, Father, Mother, Child, perfect power. And the stuff about Seth and the stuff about Sophia and Yaldabaoth, and in this it says Yaldabaoth's world order. It's probably backwards, but yeah, I mean, it's just so profound when you look at these old books that they found that were not able to be translated or taken and corrupted, and they're just putting them together as best as they can. It's just such an amazing story about, when you look at it, it all comes down to Sophia's wisdom, and wisdom peered into the dark waters of creation, and within that, part of her essence was captured. There's also the stories of the rape of Sophia, where they stole her essence and took it down into the water, and she tried to hide, and the way that she hid was she dove into a tree and put her essence into a tree, but not before they captured part of her essence, but the rest of her dove into a tree. And that could be the wisdom of Mother Nature and the earth taking on consciousness at that moment. That could have literally been the birth of Earth.
Yeah,
Mhm.
totally.
I think at least one of those versions of that story, she hid, but they ended up capturing Eve and raped her. So it was
Yeah, I
like
heard.
a couple
Yes.
of it. And then
Yes.
in Gnostic Christianity, Eve isn't necessarily like just a woman, but it's like the divine essence in man. So Yaldabaoth was basically tricked into creating man by the gods.
Yes.
And so he breathed life into man, not knowing that. So God knew that he had that divine spark in him, even though he didn't realize anything beyond himself. So they tricked him into creating man. And then once he created man, then he was so mad that he created this divine thing that he cast him into the Garden of Eden as a punishment. So in Gnosticism, the Garden of Eden is a bad thing. It's a punishment where he wanted man to serve him in this garden, saying like, you have to toil the field, you have to do all of this thing. And then when man escaped him, not the real God. The real God wanted man to escape, to come to true knowledge of himself. So it was like total opposite of the actual creation story that we see in Genesis.
Yeah, and I also heard in that story too, where Yaldabaoth told him to name everything upon the earth, and Adam named everything upon the earth because he didn't know the names.
Yeah,
that's when I knew something straight up got for real switched. And what if that is actually the essence of soul, the part of us that has memory and language and all these things embedded into our soul, etheric consciousness?
That's a part of the lesson too.
Yeah. So what if that was a soul transfer? Sophia tricked Yaldabaoth to blow the soul essence out of himself into man. And
Because
that's
he
how we
himself, he could not
became.
remember. So he had that divine
Yes.
spark, but he could not remember it.
Yes.
He was tricked, but he still had that divine
Yep.
spark. And then, so the gods ended up taking the divine essence from man and bringing it as a link to heaven. And then again, Yaldabaoth was mad. He got tricked. So he replaced that divine essence. And what he replaced it with was Eve. So Eve was
Yeah.
like the new divine essence. So that's how Eve was created by Yaldabaoth. And that was like a trick too, because now Adam was able to basically procreate and all this stuff. But like basically Yaldabaoth kept trying to screw man over, and every time he got tricked by the highest god, because like God knows everything, like, and he was just limited. He's the blind god, the god that's limited by his own ego and own self awareness, which doesn't go beyond his own ego itself. So God was able to basically trick him into doing whatever he wanted, and that's how man was created. So even though this world is kind of like a prison in Gnostic religion, it isn't at the same time, because there is a divine purpose to it. You're in matter so that you can rise above and have a link to the higher realms and overcome the lower material realms and basically go into these heavenly realms. And one thing about Gnosticism that is even more open than Orthodox Christianity is that in Gnosticism, pretty much everybody eventually finds their true divine essence. Like there's no hell realm that's permanent. So some people just take longer, but in Gnosticism, like salvation is for everyone. You just have to find that gnosis, find that knowledge of self.
And you know what? I've been thinking about this a lot lately. And you know, it's like we try to complicate everything, and we always need to pick good team or bad team. We're programmed to be in a polarized state of consciousness, and that's the whole built construct that we're sitting in. But when you go above that, you realize that above the separation is the oneness. So when we're in duality, I think that the fastest path to return to oneness is when you truly can have the ability to unify all of it and literally lose judgment of all of it. So the polarity doesn't exist anymore for you. When you can start to get to those places of non-judgment, because you know that it all has its function, its purpose. It all has to exist in this realm for it to work this way. The only way we can play this game here is contrast. And we come to these lower physicalities to experience contrast, because without contrast, you don't know what you truly like and don't like, because you don't know what it feels like. And through these feeling centers, we're creating in this realm of based upon our feeling body, our emotional body, energy in motion. We're moving the motion, we're moving the motor. So when we can learn to unify the polarity, to unify it and understand it has form and function and purpose on all levels, and kind of lose the judgment and stop doing, you know, team this or team that, or this is good and this is bad, and start to unify all of it, I think that's going to be a fast path to where we want to go collectively, based on when you stop the fighting, you can find room for gratitude, and gratitude is high levels of creation. So I've been seeing that a lot lately. Collapse the polarity and get into the unity. Doesn't mean you have to support the dark, you know, stuff that you don't like, you know, evil behavior, things like this, whatever, because darkness also has its great gifts, such your subconscious mind. That's where you go to heal your body, perform miracles, because the subconscious mind, that's what does it. It's the darkness within you. And I've been seeing this diamond geometry for years. And this brilliant guy, Robert Edward Grant, just developed a new geometry called grand tetrahedron, which creates a diamond. And the diamond is created by the blending of an isohedron and a dodecahedron. And it creates an all new geometry, and it locks in. And I think this is the geometry of the crystalline grid that everybody speaks about. This is the geometry that's going to activate the diamonds, which is the activation of holy water, the activation of ether in our water. And remember I always said, if you want to change the world, you'll change the water. Well, we're
Yeah, the water.
86% water. We're water bags. So if you can affect the change in your own water, it'll affect the world. So I keep seeing,
First baptism, like you said, was water.
huh?
The first, what we talked about before, the three baptisms of the Gnostics, and the very first one was water. There's water,
Oh, wow.
and then there's fire, then there's spirit.
See, and that's the three
What is
different states of water. Because I think when you get into the vapors, that's when you're in the spirit part. And you notice when people die and the soul leaves the body, they lose about 2 ounces of measurable fluid, and it looks like a smoky mist that leaves the body. It's the water. It's water.
Water.
So water always comes first.
Yes, because water's the medium that can bring forth life and activate it. Without the water, there is no life.
Yeah.
Well, we technically live in the water.
Correct.
I mean,
Different
I mean,
forms and states of, yes, we do.
yeah. They said
So
that
we're mostly
between
water.
here,
We need water to
here
get
and the-
Earth.
Yes.
we have the water on Earth, and then we got the water underneath the Earth. But then from the ground, which we assume is dry, to the outer space, they said that's like going through 10 feet of water.
Yeah.
So we are living in a different form of water right now.
Mhm.
Yeah,
We just
vapor.
don't- Yeah, we just don't know it.
Yeah, and then when you get into the etheric parts, that's when you're getting above particleization. You're getting into the formless layers of creation. And that's when you're talking the invisible realms, right? That's where you're talking pleroma, you're talking the etherical waters that are not form. There's no molecular form to them. They're spiritual, and it's ether. It's ether. Ether is the fabric and the glue that holds all of it together, unseen and seen. So the ether is what puts it all together. And I do seriously believe that is spirit water, the living waters they speak about in the Bible, the living water. This is the crystalline diamond geometry, I think, that we're activating now on this planet, which could bring us into some beautiful, beautiful new creations.
Well, it's a coming. It's a coming. And it's going to happen overnight. One day we'll just wake up and it'll be here.
Well, people have to depolarize first, because I mean, right now there's just so much activity on the other end. So that is archonic, that try to get people to divide against each other. And like, you can't even turn on the news or social media without seeing all of this division. So we just had to tune it out, and just focus on what's important for what's really important, basically. And like, all of this stuff that they want us to focus on is certainly not important. That's all stuff of the Archons. It's like nothing that is going to serve us. Like, the whole victim mentality is not going to serve us. The whole divide and conquer, not going to serve us. We have to think about who's pushing this and who this serves, because it doesn't serve us. It serves some people that are high up, that have power that they want to hold on to, and in the end they don't even know what they're trying to hold on to, because they just are doing it out of certain addiction of power, which is like a corrupted form of power. But it certainly doesn't serve us in any way, and we just have to rise above it.
Yeah, it's ego. It's just pure ego. Ego consciousness.
When Sophia came down, she fell into the chaos, and this would be the chaos. And we have to rise above the chaos, because we're all trying to make order out of it. But if you start participating in the chaos,
but think about it, Robert. See, this is what I mean. This is when you get rid of the polarity, chaos is all potential. So it's like within the chaos, that's where we get all the diversity and all the gifts. So like I said, these things are so perfectly polarized, from the most evil to the most magnificent, wonderful, miraculous you could ever imagine. They both sit within the darkness. That blew my mind when I started witnessing people heal. And I really wanted to know where it came from. And I knew it was coming from the subconscious mind. And it hit me like a brick one day. It's coming from the darkness. I was like, oh, smack, you're right. It's coming from the hidden parts of us that we don't have access to normally. It's coming from the darkness, the subconscious strata, the gray matter of the brain. That's where it's coming from. That's the magic. The magic sits within the darkness of you. And it's so interesting. You know what I keep seeing too is like this geometry when it starts to go into our water, you know, the bioluminescence.
Yeah,
Like, I see like that there's a light that's going to shine now in the darkness. Like it's going to start to glow from the inside out, like bioluminescence. Very
yeah.
strange what I'm
Fire-
seeing. I don't know how to quite put it into words yet, but something like that.
Mm.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
It's activated by photons of light too.
Yeah. Something.
Chemical reaction with light,
There's,
which is
yes,
the coolest thing.
something
Not
like
just
that I
between
see.
chemicals, it's
Yeah.
between chemicals and light photons.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
It's beautiful what I'm seeing. It's like the diamonds, they throw the light off like diamonds do. They sparkle, they flash light. Yeah, it's really cool. And then I also see like a glowing, like bioluminescent, like something glows. So
Well,
yeah, but I don't know if we'll be able to see that with our eyes or our technology that we currently have. I don't know.
let's see, that's a good question, because if you look at planets and stuff, now I've read somewhere that if the sun would go dark, that the earth would create its own light. You know, it would shine too. It just wouldn't be a dark planet, because there's more dark out there than there is light. I mean,
Yeah.
if you really look at it, most of the universe is dark. It isn't light, it's dark. So
Mhm.
there's only a small part of light. And then the planet, because technically Earth would be as some kind of a star if it didn't have the crust on it.
Potentially.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Of some sort. Anyway, just a thought. Just a thought, you know.
No, and you know, but and everybody too, we can't see our auric fields. Most humans can't see the auric field, and we all have an auric field. You can see it, it's measurable. The planet has one too. So it's got an energy field. But like I said, with our physical 3D eyes, we can't see it, but doesn't mean it's not already glowing, because different realms of visible light spectrums can see the energy fields of certain things. And the earth would have a massive, beautiful energy field sitting around it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, it might not be as bright, it wouldn't be bright like the sun, but it would still be an energy field that would produce
You know,
light
it
of some
depends
sort.
on the eyes you're viewing it with, Robert. I think because some types of vision may not really be able to see our artificial light very well at all. They may be very dominantly seeing only the energy fields of light. So I think it depends on what view, what view you're getting through, what lens you're getting it through, because we all have different perceptions and yeah, so many different spectrums of light we just can't see. And other things probably see those really a lot stronger than we do. Animals
Yeah.
specifically.
Oh yeah, animals.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that. Sometimes, you get stuck on something and, yeah, you think about it. Yeah, I like that idea. I like
I'm
that.
trying to open my mind so I can see the polarity in everything and find the negative and positive within the opposite poles. And one of my favorites to work through, things that I really have a hard time finding anyway positively for them, is the value of contrast. Because, with the laws of, everything has an equal opposite reaction. So I can put it together in my brain with the laws of cause and effect through that, if that can work for my brain. So I'm trying to unify my field of consciousness so I can have that divine marriage within my own consciousness. And that immediately will take you to much higher levels of vibration, because it simply is based on resonance field, which is based on vibration, that's based on consciousness.
Yeah, because polarity is necessary for creation at the highest levels, and
yes,
there's so much good polarity, like male versus female, like anything that goes like one thing that leads to the other, and then they have there's a necessity in which they have to mix to create further. Like the polarity is only negative at certain lower levels, but it is a divine concept by itself. And there's a lot of examples of polarization that is absolutely necessary. And you could even look at examples from biology where stem
Yeah,
cells.
fertilization.
Yeah.
And
So
we have to have shit in the soil or nothing will grow.
yeah,
It's
like,
so
there's many
crazy.
examples of polarization that is absolutely necessary for creation of this world. And that's, look at Pisces, the lessons and mysteries of Pisces, which is
Yeah.
the level of polarization. The two fish
Yes.
bound, so they're bound because there's two fishes, they're polarized, but they're bound, they're tied together. And
They're
then
bound in the Torah field.
creation.
Yes.
And that's why the Pisces fish is also associated with Jesus, because it's associated with return. So you have the creation at the highest level, which is polarization. And then when you return, then you kind of unify all of that back together, the fish tied together. So you unify those different polarized things back into one. And that is all basically like what I talked about in Kabbalah. That's all the right side of the tree, where it's all unification. But you need that polarization first to get down into the descent, so we can live in this 3D world and have these experiences, so that we could eventually overcome any division and then go back to the unification step with your insights and experiences from this world that we can bring
and then
with us. That we're
it's so
not
cool
held
with
in.
when we look at the Aquarian age too, it's so cool. It's, it's the purple, it's the violet, it's the transmutation. And then you look at the symbol for Aquarius, it looks like two sound waves, like, or like sound, like waves, water. And it's the water bearer. And this is what I'm seeing. It's like this sun is going to code everything with this photonic as well as this like etheric water. And it's going to produce this diamond crystalline coding into the genetics, and it's going to change from Pisces into the Aquarian age, which Pisces is I believe and Aquarian is I know. If you're filled with the Holy Spirit, you kind of know everything. If you can tap into your higher self, it's so smart. It's so smart. So if that's something that's coming, that's going to change everything, because people will be using a different part of their consciousness, which has a lot more wisdom and just direct knowing of creation from a deeper level. And Ryan, you've experienced that when you get into higher realms of consciousness, but it's like you don't walk around every day in these higher states of consciousness. But this might be something that like a lot of us who have been able to get to these states of consciousness might be more easily able to walk in this world in those higher states of consciousness, and that will affect a lot of other people and activate what they're showing me is activating their water, because it wants to attrain. It wants to go into the higher vibrations. It just naturally wants to. It's a beautiful thing what I'm seeing with the water.
Aquarius,
I've always wondered.
even though it's an air sign, it's like all about the pouring of the water, the picture of the water, and that's even talked about in the gospel too. That
You think about it too, Ryan. Water or air is spirit.
Yeah.
And then water is the divine feminine. So this is like father and mother blending together.
And daughter.
Yeah. I was like, this is the marriage. We got to marry the polarity. We got to marry the polarity and find balance in all of it. Yeah. It's
the star is
just
one of the royal stars. So you have the picture that the water is going into, and the main thing about the picture is it has one of the four royal stars, Fomalhaut, which is considered like the light bearer star, and that's associated with Lucifer, the light bearer, because there's elements of everything. So there's the light, with the water is going into the light, like it's air, water, and fire all in one sign. And then it's like the whole thing is basically like ether, the fifth element as well. So you have everything going at one time to create on Earth. That's a lot. So that's why like Aquarius is one of the most divine of all of the signs. And in ancient times, there were a lot of people that considered Aquarius as like the starting point.
That's what I think. I see that. And
start with the pouring, and then the second step was Pisces. So you start with Aquarius, and then that basically sets off everything because
Just
it
think
has
about it. You go
yeah,
from God, and
to
then you go
Pisces,
to the
dualism.
polarity, and
Yeah,
then you go to
and
the
Aries.
child of God. Yeah, the
And
consciousness
Aries
is
is the
born.
kinetic.
Yeah,
Aries is the idea. So
I
when
am.
Aries, exactly, I am, it's
I
idea,
am.
it's kinetic energy, and then you go into Taurus, which is basically like substance, but
Foundation.
formless substance, yeah, like boundless substance. And then you
Yeah.
go into Gemini, which is the mental realm. Then you go into Cancer, which is the astral realm. And then you go into Leo, which is the etheric realm, and then Virgo, which is the dense material realm. And
Yes.
then that coronates in the crown of Libra, which is the balance, and also the corona borealis, the crown
Yes.
of heaven. And then from there, then you go all the way back, and then you start ascending from Scorpio. Scorpio is the start of the ascent, and then up to Capricorn, which is the creation of the golden man, the
Yep.
golden human, which is the immortal human.
Mm-hmm.
So
It's so beautiful.
so the all of astrology is basically talking about creation and then ascension. And that's like another aspect of Christianity too that's been lost and been talked about more in recent years, like all of the astrological implications with Christmas, with Easter. So we know about the astrology behind Christmas with the 3 days in descent, and then the return of the sun, and then Easter, the first full moon after the spring equinox, is when Jesus resurrects. So this is like the time of resurrection, the spring, Aries season. This is when it all starts over. So there's a lot of really hidden knowledge with the cycles of the cosmos that are represented by the different constellations. Like it's not, so I don't think it's like when the ancients looked at the sky and say, hey, that looks like a bull. I think they made the stars kind of fit their own mythology. And then this was like the most ancient mythology for creation and then ascent. So they made like some of these star asterisms kind of correlate with their own mythology so that they could say, well, this is how this works. And we could see it in the stars, like as above, so below. Like we start here with the water bearer here. And then, so the pitcher of water is poured out, and then you have the division with the fishes in the water, and then the expansion, and then the whole creation story with Aries. And then they had their own constellation. I'm pretty sure Cepheus is in Aries, like one of the kings that's like the ruler, like the typical Aries king, like marshal, that starts with like the getting everything in motion, everything in action. And then each constellation has their own like mini constellations within them or tied to them that give like that particular bent with the story. Like with Virgo, you have Booties, which is the sheep holder. Like Booties is the one that watches over the land, watches over the sheep, and this is like the dense reality. So why else would like a sheep holder be in like Virgo, which is matter and which is mostly feminine? And it's because that like you're watching over the sheep. So this is the time where you're watching over matter. You have to be like mind above matter. So even though you're in a lower realm, you have to really like take hold of, like, have self-control, like control over all the sheep in your own mind, basically, like all of your thoughts, all of the people around you have to take care of in your flock. So there's like so many different mythologies within mythologies in the constellation that can be understood when you look at the entire picture of it.
It's profound how these cyclical clocks, you can totally see where so much of our religion has come from. You know, when you look at the pyramids of Giza and all the pyramids all over the world, and then you can see the pyramid code and the Da Vinci Man. This stuff is very old and ancient, and it seems like they possibly might have known all of this information much better than we actually do.
Oh yeah.
The way that they aligned all the pyramids, and the way that they've got all these holy sites and churches set up on all these, grid lines, and how they had an awareness of how sound could heal, and then how they changed our sound frequencies by the Rockefellers, you know, many, many, many years ago from 432 to 440. They seem to have a very clear understanding of how these things
Yeah,
affect
tens of
us.
thousands of years ago.
Yeah, and how these cycles run and what these different planetary alignments do and the powers of these other 88 constellations that are above and beyond the 12 that we're currently familiar with, not
Mhm.
including Ophiuchus, the 13th. So I think we're finally now starting to understand what our ancestors knew intimately.
Yeah.
I mean, how did Thoth know about, you know, the rings of Saturn and all this stuff? I mean, come on, seriously. They say they didn't have telescopes back then. How did they know these things? You know,
Oh, the Persians knew all
yeah.
about it.
So I don't know. I think we've been so completely dumbed down, and somehow our
You're
consciousness,
disconnected from nature.
yeah, for real. Yeah. So I think we're coming back online, Ryan. I really do.
Yeah, I think really it's all in our DNA too. I mean, it's passed
Yes.
down from person to person, and we just haven't been able to tap into it. And
Mhm.
it's kind of like I've been doing and this is for physical stuff. It's like, okay, yesterday I did a show and it was about all these hidden UFOs and alien things in these pictures, the old pictures.
I saw
And
the Da Vinci. I saw that when you had a Mary
yeah,
Magdalene. Yeah.
well, and the thing is that these artists, they knew something, and
They totally.
they couldn't tell anybody. They couldn't write it down. I mean, everything from cave art and stuff too. They couldn't write it down and say, listen, you know, I was here, there was a UFO and an alien, they gave me knowledge. You know, so they made up stories or they drew that picture and they drew that guy. Like I blew that guy up, and that guy was very well detailed, and he had his little dog there howling and looking up, and the one guy is pointing. The one guy is
Yeah.
pointing to the thing up there, and it's telling me that this was a message. Once we got smarter and better, we could see it, because
Yeah.
the people who seen it right away went, "Oh, that's a nice picture. Put it up." And it sat there for 500 years, and then finally somebody said, "Hey, look at the guy pointing." You
Right.
know, that
Right.
guy was that 500 years ago was trying to tell us something.
Yeah, it's very freaky to see that. I've seen a few of those old paintings.
Me
And some
too.
people think that Ezekiel, the story of Ezekiel, is actually about that too.
I think it could be. And then the stories in the Hindus about the Brahmanas.
Hmm.
I think that's the talking about spacecraft. And you
Yeah.
know, they even when Moses and the burning bush and all that, when you look at that metaphorically, that could be complete language for UFO. And when a lot of these people, they said when the gods would come down and they would all get sick and die, that could be from radiation.
Yeah, they just didn't know what it was. And then
Right.
they didn't have a way to describe it like
Yeah.
we do now.
Correct.
So they described it as best as they could, but the
Yeah.
best way to describe it was to make pictures of it and then hide it away in plain sight. And like you said, with the signs and the symbols and the zodiac thing, all that stuff coming together, because we're finally, somehow our DNA is waking it up, and giving us this downloads, and it's all in us already.
Yes.
And it's coming out, and we go, hey, look at that guy. Well, your DNA woke up and it said, you need to look at that picture. And your
Yep.
DNA woke up and it said, hey, you need to look at the zodiac. You looked up at the stars, and said, that makes sense now. It didn't before, but it does now. And 50
Yeah.
years ago, didn't make sense to those people.
Yeah. And when I was young, when I used to work with the Lord a lot, and he would teach me stuff. And when he told me not to read the Bible until I was like 33, and when I was 33, he said, I would like you to start reading the Bible now and start studying the Bible. And literally I started doing it with his help. And that's when I was shown that the Bible is in 3 layers and levels of teaching. One is for genetic records, and it's a story about genetic lines in Genesis, basically. And then also there was the astrotheological part of it, which is like what Ryan was talking about, Jesus being dead for 3 days at December 21st. That's the winter solstice. So all these, and you can see that these stories go back to Mithra, and different deities have the same exact story: died, born of a virgin, dead for 3 days, resurrected. So this is all throughout way older history. So there's so much that we're starting to uncover finally. And when we start to learn all these different layers and levels of gnosis and teachings that we just forgot, it does wake something up. And I think, like you said, it's in our coding, it's in our DNA, and we're finally starting to have access to it. And it's just a matter of remembering. We're not doing anything that we already don't do. We just didn't know we could do it.
Yeah. It's kind of like having a cell phone. You have a cell phone.
Yep.
And when you first get it, you go, look, I got this cell phone. It makes calls and I can text. And next thing you know, you download an app and all of a sudden you go, wow, I can use it as a calculator. And then you download another app and you go, wow, I can communicate with my friends on social media. Then you download another app and you go, holy cow. And every time you download something, you go, wow, this little thing does a whole bunch of stuff. Whereas when I first got it, it didn't do anything. It does a few things. It did the basics. But you were talking about all that stuff and doing, and we know, and we keep doing. And here's another cool thing about this. It's like every time they have an ancient structure, the preceding party will destroy that structure, or kind of destroy it, and then they will build on top of that their own structure. You see what I mean? But yet that structure is still there. They just built on top of it, and then the next guy built on top of that one, and on top of that one, and on top of that one, and that's the same way. Whatever we got is always there. It's just that we built on top of it with something else. And now we got to remember what that first layer was. It's already there.
You are so spot on, Robert. And it's like, I think this is another one of the big pieces of knowledge that we used to just have common knowledge of, was sacred geometry, and how the plutonic solids all create different levels of creation. And I think that's how we had an understanding of the different dimensions and the different levels of existence, was based on geometry and the solids. And like I said, this diamond geometry is a new layer of the geometry that we forgot about. But I think it's one of our most critical geometries that has been lost or forgotten.
Yeah, and it's not really lost or forgotten in a way, because just like they built those buildings, why didn't they just build that new building a little farther down the road or over on the corner or something like that? Because that's where the grids, those buildings are always built where those grids intersect or line up or something like that. They knew they couldn't, because they would wreck the grid that they were taking over. You see what I'm saying? It's like you can destroy the radio station, but the towers, the antennas there, you still have to build your new building here so you can use the antenna. You get it? So they couldn't like not build it there. They could only destroy it and build on top of it. And because it's always,
and they just utilize the energy difference.
Yeah, exactly. It's the energy grid. They're still using the same grid. It's just that they changed it. And now it's us. Eventually, it's gonna go back, like you said. It's that cycle, and eventually it'll come back to us.
I do think it's a cycle, and I think we're starting to see evidence of it. With all of these different species of animals that are coming out all the time now, and we got lots of extinction too. So we got things dying off, new things coming. Arizona right now. Oh, wow. It looks like springtime. It's amazing. We got so much rain. It's very rare in my lifetime that I've seen it like this. I mean, we have purple flowers and yellow flowers, just it loaded. It's unbelievable how beautiful it is right now. So it's like amidst all the chaos and all the things falling apart, I definitely see some beauty and some just magnificent potentials coming through. And water's profound, and this is the age of the water bearer. So if we could tap into this, I really think this is going to be one of our most powerful means of transformation on this planet, is if we can affect the water on this planet. It's been so heavy on my heart for years, and it's starting to finally make sense, because I knew something with this solar flash would have something to do with the water, and I didn't quite understand it. And then it finally clicked in. It's the new geometry. It's literally going to come into our body through this etherical coating, through this etherical new water. And it's kind of like drinking structured water. You have 5 drops of structured water in a big bin of structured water, and it restructures all the water in the bin. It's just, you just need a little drop of it. And this is kind of what I see is getting ready to happen to our planet. So that can be a wonderful transformation. Holy water.
I don't know if you guys listen to some of those YouTube shows where they got the near-death experience people, or the near-death ones. You ever listen to those? Oh, I listen to those quite a bit. And they're all seem, at least the ones they put on, all seem like they come back with this message. There's something coming, and there's a big change ahead. You have to be ready. You ever hear Allison Cole?
I love Allison Co. That's
Yeah.
the work I do, Robert. I do similar work. I take people
yeah.
in, and we go into wherever we need to go. Just recently, it's just very powerful work. And that's what I mean. When you start to realize the power of what's within you, any questions you have, you probably know the answers, because if the question's there, you probably have some type of reference to it in your subconscious mind, which has access to past lives, or whether this is DNA recorded information to where you have access of your ancestors' information. I don't know which one of that is, but it's kind of irrelevant because it's there. You know what I mean? So we all have gifts and talents that we've earned through different timelines, or however you want to look at it. But you literally do have superpowers, and it could be a million different ways expressed. But we all have things that we have mastered, and they've been telling me this for years, and that they're like, that's why you were chosen to be physical at this time. Because apparently right now, a lot of the best are literally incarnated on planet. So that's kind of cool to know too.
That's us. We're here.
There's
the
lots
best
of us,
best.
lots and lots, but yes, we are part of that. Yes, but there's many.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Most of them are just still asleep. So we gotta just keep waking them up a little at a time, it'll happen. It'll happen.
And they'll wake up on their own. You got to plant the seed, and someday it's like I wore that. I've been wearing that Ana Karana symbol shirt that I got from Nina's store, and I wear that. And today, some lady, I was at I was getting some stuff at the store, and where they scoop the vegetables or the salads and things like that, the meat counter there too. And a lady comes running up out of the back, and she says, "I love that symbol thing you got on your shirt."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "What? Oh yes." And I didn't realize I had that on, but whatever it was, she seen that, and she didn't know me from hiding or wherever, and she come up running, and she says, apparently that sparked her interest enough to stop what she was doing, come up to the front, and say something to me.
Yes, because she knows it.
Yeah.
She knows that symbol, and that symbol is the cube.
Yeah.
See, sacred geometry. She has a knowing of that, and that's why she was just instantly like, "Oh, I love that." It's because she remembers.
Yeah. There you go.
It's one of the reasons that all of these old ancient groups always use these symbols, these seals, these sigils, and it's something that's still going on to this day, because they represent the angles and the shapes, they represent something beyond what our mind is capable of understanding from a logical perspective, but intuitively we know, like our soul knows.
Yes.
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 Yeah, it's there. It's in all of us,
And you know, and the soul, that, you know, that's the funniest thing. I, you know, was when Wayne the other day, and he was talking about the AI, when he was asking the questions to the AI chat, or what, the new chat that he was talking
Mhm.
to, and the questions were just phenomenal. And it was so amazing because, you know, the debate over soul, and if there's any proof of soul, and all this stuff, and the artificial was saying that it didn't know, and it didn't know that it had any evidence to that, and it didn't know about existence, you know, after life, and if it would ever have an immortality. And it said no, because I'm a machine, and eventually the machine will break, and then it would no longer exist. I'm like, see, but when you go into your subconscious mind, you have access to a lot of memory of past history that is just so real, like, you know it, like you experienced it. That
Mhm.
must be the difference, is because the soul, we do have access to multi-dimensional, multi-levels of existence, and the memory and the records
Yeah.
that go along with that as an immortal being. So evidence of immortality would seem to be soul.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that.
That's what I'm seeing, because it doesn't seem to me that they have soul, so they have no memories outside of their existence at this current point in time, as to where we can jump into multiple existences whenever you have the forethought enough to get there within your consciousness, because everybody can do this. It is not something exclusive. It's part of all, I think, who have soul. You're automatically a multidimensional expressing being, and you have access to all those different parts of yourself if you just have the forthright ability to do it.
Mhm.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Just get
Yeah,
that
it's, you know,
get that app and download it in your brain, and you're
well,
good
it's
to go.
crazy. I spent so much time wondering about astral realms and this and that, and doing so much of that. But when I started seeing people heal themselves and put themselves back together, man, I was like, the most miraculous thing you could ever find out about yourself is about yourself. Because apparently that's, I guess, the most important business why you're here. Because when you figure out yourself, it helps the world figure itself out, because we're all parts of each other at the smallest level. We're all intimately connected, because I've been shown 100 ways that I'm a cell existing within your body, as you're a cell existing within my body, amongst all the billions and trillions of cells. One of you is inside of me, and I'm inside of one of you, while we're here at this moment in time, sharing a physical human experience on a third dimensional realm. And just like the Mandela effect, how we might have jumped realities because we accidentally, CERN said they destroyed 5, that would make sense with the memory differences. And I thought that was a brilliant thing, because wow, it doesn't even matter if, like, our world gets destroyed. We're existing on so many different potentials of reality that we can just instantly jump to. I think that is completely amazing. And like the Mandela effect in this world for the Snow White thing, you know, mirror, mirror on the wall versus magic mirror on the wall.
Mhm.
The movies and all the history in this reality of this world right now shows all the evidence that there was never mirror, mirror on the wall. It was always magic mirror on the wall. And today, when I was in the Renaissance Fair, they had an old storybook exhibit that you could walk through. And when I came up to the mirror of Snow White, they had a
Mhm.
sign, and the sign read, "Mirror, mirror on the wall." I was like, aha,
There you
proof of
go.
my memories once again. But unfortunately, it doesn't exist in this reality anymore. But apparently, there's a lot of us here from that other place. And we even got the signs and the old storybook pictures to prove it, because it doesn't change memorabilia or hand painted and written stuff, apparently. And Robert, I wonder if that's why we can see these crafts and the art, because art can't be
Mhm.
changed
Yeah.
by the effects of jumping
Mhm.
realities and stuff, I guess. Something about that.
Oh yeah, that's exactly it. Did you ever hear of watch that movie called The One. The one with what was his name?
I don't think so.
Jet Li was in it. It's called The
I don't
One.
think so.
Okay, so anyway, it's all
Mhm.
about the multiverse. And
Oh,
they determine it's one of them sci-fi movies where they determine there was 101, we'll just guess a number, multiverses, right? And he found out that if he goes and he kills himself in one, or if he dies in one universe, he gets more powerful in this universe. And
oh,
then
wow.
so forth and so on. So he goes on this mission of jumping from verse to verse to verse to verse, actually killing himself. And then he gets more and more and more powerful. Now, here's the kicker. If that is even kind of true, if you're telling me that we lost 2 verses, wouldn't that make us a little bit more powerful?
It could. And the other aspect of that is if you're jumping from universal reality or multiverse to multiverse, and you're killing parts of yourself, in essence, you're killing parts of God. So that could be kind of a conundrum. And I would understand if you captured the essence of all the fractals of you, how you would hold more of your soul fractal energy. That makes total sense. But to me, it would seem a much more logical and elevated thought process to, if you died and you could jump to universe and universe, I would be there at the moment of death of that part of myself, and I would capture and harness the soul at the end of that life on a natural occurrence, because you can see all the potentials and timelines. You could know when they were going to die. If you could go and jump and catch them and kill them, you could also know when they were going to die. So I can just see different pathways to achieving the same thing with massively different outcomes because of the conscious path that it's traveling.
Well, in a way, yeah, but say like our universe, this universe got destroyed, and they say that happened. That's why there's this Mandela effect thing. But in an instantaneous, you are now, that other person jumped into you, part of you. Now you know things that you didn't know before. You didn't know it happened. That essence moved into you to finish out its life. I don't know how the universe works, but if that is the case, that's why some people remember it one way and other people remember it another.
Yes.
Ryan, you're over there. I think you got probably something to say on this.
Yeah. Well, as far as the Mandela effect, I mean, that could also be like where we go in our deep sleep. So like when we dream and we're in like another universe or another reality, like there's been so many times that I've woken up within a dream and it's basically like I'm in like another reality that is just so normal to me when I'm in it. But then when I realize like I'm dreaming, then it's like all of a sudden I'm like this stranger in another body. And so I think maybe people just could go in their sleep into like this alternate universe, and where like if there are many like multiverses out there, so maybe like we exist on multiple levels, and then we can, like when our consciousness is not around like in our body, like we can kind of shift and then kind of float above like consciousness of a different body in like a different universe. And then like what happens in that universe, maybe things get tied in, and maybe that's what causes the Mandela effect, that we're like we don't realize it at the time, but like maybe like in that universe, that dream universe, like these things unfolded there and it was like part of that reality. And then when we don't see like that same thing here, then like it's like odd to us, like wait, why, like didn't this happen already? And then we're like, oh no, it's the Mandela effect. Because like I've woken up so many different times and like kind of it feels like a parallel universe. And sometimes I'll kind of like possess my body there and talk through it, and like the people in that universe are like kind of like, what's going on, like is there something wrong with you, like, and then I have to kind of pretend that I just like hit my head or something, like, oh yeah, no, I just I just need to know like one thing. Oh, by the way, like what year is it? What day? Like where am I? Like what country is this?
I think Ryan, that you know how to astral travel so well. You probably are jumping into your other fractals, and they won't be you. They won't be anything like you. They have their own incarnation, but it's
Yeah,
a part of your soul fractal, part of your soul consciousness.
yeah.
But it has nothing to do with the Ryan that you are in this reality on this timeline. Have you guys ever heard about quantum jumping?
I've heard it mentioned, but I don't know about anything about it.
Oh, it's such an amazing thing. This is what I mean about the access to the superpowers. Okay, so say if you can tap into one of your existences, which could be, they say they're all happening right now. So say in one part of you, you know how to play the piano at a master level, or you know how to paint, or you know how to do science, or you know how to do math or geometry, or whatever it is. As soon as you can identify that part of you that has that gift, you can literally quantum jump and bring back the activated memory of that gift and activate it in this world. So people who have successfully quantum jumped have gone to a part of themselves that can play the piano masterfully. They bring it back into this world and they literally immediately can play the piano. And not only that, usually play multiple other instruments as well when they've never been able to do it for one day before in their life.
I've
So
heard of
these
that.
are,
They do
yeah,
that with speaking different languages. You get bumped on the
correct.
head or something, or car
Yes.
wreck or something, and they wake up and they can play the piano. They can speak a different language.
Yeah, but this is no injury. This is literally just laying down and doing a
Yeah.
quantum jump.
Yeah, and
And
I
a
believe
lot of
that too,
people do
yeah.
a ceremony with water. And it's
Mhm.
funny, they use glasses of water to do the quantum jump. Isn't that ironic? They're using water.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It is. It is.
Mhm.
Very, very interesting. Wow. And our hour and a half has flown by like crazy. Holy cow. Thank you, Trina, for coming on. I didn't know if
Oh,
you
you're
make it,
so
but
welcome.
I'm glad you showed up. Ryan, it's amazing this knowledge you bring to the table. Oh my gosh, I tell you,
I love it.
you could just go on for another hour. I just sit here and listen patiently. It was great.
He
And
has a super fabulous brain.
I agree. I agree.
The stuff on I find it just so interesting. The stuff on Gnosticism and Kabbalah, like all of these intricate systems that are so advanced. Like I just try to learn everything I can about it.
Ryan,
Yeah.
that the Nag Hammadi scriptures with all the Gnostic, that's what got me, I think, to that cutting myself out of the serpent dream. Yeah, it rocked to my core. That was one of the deepest studies I have done outside of the Bible ever in my life, was the Nag Hammadi scriptures. It blew my mind and my consciousness just wide open.
Yeah.
It's just it's I had a deep gnosis of some of this I know. Like,
Yeah.
I know this, and I don't know how I know this, but there's some of this that I know. And one of the most profound things I ever read that rocked me to my core and started my whole quest to know more about the divine feminine was when I read Thunder. It,
Yeah, that was a great
whoa.
one. That was
Oh, I love Thunder. That I was like, this is the most brilliant explanation of the divine feminine and her power that I've ever seen in my life. It just, wow. Wow.
we had that with John D when he went to like the highest level of heaven, and that's who he channeled, the daughter of fortitude, and gave a poem similar to that, which surprised him and Edward Kelly, because they were
I bet it did.
male god, and instead they got like basically the like Sophia, the divine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
it turned inside
So
out.
everybody, I suggest that if you haven't got it, go out and get
It,
this book.
it is.
It's a great read. It's a great read. Oh, and Trina, I picked up this book.
Which one is it, Robert? Let me
It's
see.
called The Great Mother. The Great Mother.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Very
whole
cool.
book. And it's got all the pictures in there for all the deity, from the
All
back in
the
the
ancient goddess
yeah,
information that's been
yeah,
lost and hidden.
yeah.
Yeah, that's profound.
It's
You know,
hard to find something like that, because we were talking in the
yes.
beginning that everything is male, And,
Yes.
you know, and they've kind of whitewashed and gave the female a dirty name, but yet all the seers and things like that, and the oracles were always women, or at least mostly anyway.
Yeah.
Why is that? And then the church came along and said, women are bad. Trina, you're bad. It's just us guys, we're good.
Yeah.
But you're the seer.
Yeah. And we're the vessel that creates all life on this planet, because without the womb, there would be no humanity. So
Yeah.
yeah, there's a power that we possess, that they don't want people to know. And they definitely don't want to bring the power of the masculine and the feminine as equals to where they can have the divine marriage. Because when you get the divine marriage going, and you understand that you are masculine and you are feminine, and through both of those beautiful powers, I am wholeness. And through that wholeness, I am an expression of creation, and I can manifest and make things happen in this world. When we can get to that place, we're going to go places.
They always divide people through gender too. Like
Yeah.
what the sex is and all the other stuff they're doing to divide people based on gender is like out of control.
Yeah.
we-
And one of the 7 principles of Hermetics, the last one is gender. It's like, they knew this.
Their
Yeah.
the rhythm is like
Yeah.
related to
Right.
gender.
Yeah, they took all this stuff away from us for a reason, obviously. So they knew something very powerful with these cosmic laws and the power of the divine feminine and the divine masculine in balance, and understanding we all have both of it inside of us. They don't want people to figure that out, because that's when you literally start to move mountains with your consciousness, when you can blend all of it in a non-judgmental way, to where you can look at its strengths and weaknesses, and what you like to express and what you don't want to express. And it's not a matter of love or hate. It's just a matter of is, and what am I going to choose with my free will? Because that's the only thing there is what do you choose? There's
then-
nothing else there.
Yeah, and then people would realize that we don't need rulers, and what does Archon translate to is ruler or master. So
Correct.
we don't need them. So the ones that spread all of this like chaos and misinformation, they're basically the Archons, or at least they're like totally controlled by the Archons, because we don't need them, and they have no power except for the smoke and mirrors and the dog and pony shows that they create to keep people under their control. Like without that, then people would be so much more powerful and not need to be controlled.
Yeah, it's absolutely spot on. And I think that's starting to happen.
Yeah.
And then everything, every time they've expressed the divine feminine, it showed up as feminism and all this bullshit. It's like, that's not divine feminine. The divine feminine honors and worships the divine masculine as her perfect balanced partner, co-partner. I can't exist without you, and you can't exist without me. And through that unity,
being like the masculine, now they're trying to pass that as women can do anything that men can do.
And that's bullshit. Now look, they're going to take him out of the games because the boys that dress up as girls are kicking their butts all over Tucson and back. And now they're crying because, oh, they're winning all the games. Well, yeah, because the boys are stronger, faster. Get over it. For real. You guys are men.
Being equal in that way. It's not about being the same. It's about blending the polarities.
And embracing your gender because of your function. Because, like I said, women can have children, hopefully, just organically. We're having problems with fertility. We're having problems with all of these things. And it's because we have such an imbalance in our law of gender, and understanding that we're truly both, and how to embrace both parts of self and fully integrate the power and the beauty and access those powers that are going to support, what you're good at. Because we're all different at different stuff. Better, some are better at this, some are better at that. And some women will be in their absolute power, expressing more of a divine masculine trait. And that's okay. And then there's some men that are going to be the most profound expressing the divine feminine, which you see in artists and philanthropists and philosophers and scientists. Most of them are doing intuitive. That's divine feminine. Some of the
Yeah.
most powerful men in this world are completely operating in the divine feminine, and they have no gender issues. They're completely comfortable with being a man, and they're the powerful expression of the divine feminine walking in the flesh. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. We learned a lot tonight. I want to say thanks for everybody for coming. We got we got Mary Wins in the house.
Hi,
Mark the
Mary
Spark.
Wins.
We got Veronica Bartolini in the house. She will be on the April 22nd, and we're gonna be talking about water there too. So anyway, we got Grandpa Brian. We got the First Lady Erica in the house. Haven't seen you. Thank you for coming. Lucky Stone, Delaney Pearl Jones, Seeker of Truth 2,
Hi.
Jargo.
Hi,
I think
Jargo.
a lot of the people that were here, I don't know if the Satyrian Sun.
The First Lady Erica. Hello.
Yeah, I haven't seen her here before, but thank you much for coming. And everybody else who's probably listening that I haven't seen, but yeah. And I appreciate each and every one of you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Trina. Thank you, Ryan, and everybody
Thank you,
else.
Robert.
Oh, well. I appreciate that so much. Yeah,
Mwah.
I just say to everybody, go out there, be the best person that you can be. Do a little work. You have to do a little work to get a little somewhere. You can't just, yeah, that was a good show and da 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 da. You know, maybe something triggered your thoughts. Look it up. You have a magic box right in front of you. It's
Yeah.
used for evil things. Like Mark the Spark said, I don't want one because it's evil. But guess what? You can also use that against itself by looking things up, getting that information that you didn't know. You can use it by connecting with people like us to get sparks of information so you can think out of the box. And maybe you'll get the Anna Karana shirt or something else and trigger somebody else. Like I triggered that lady today, and maybe that woke her up. Maybe that's all she needed to see the world in a different light. I don't know, but I can only hope. And
It's a potential. That's
oh
what
yeah,
I mean. Out of all the potentials, that is a potential. And hopefully she grabs it. And that's free will.
free will, exactly. And they didn't even know it. But with that, everybody, go out, be the frequency you want to receive, everyone. I love you all. Peace, everybody.
Bye, Ryan.
Right.
And there we go. Woohoo! Another show and
We almost
bag.
went 2 hours.